Good morning and welcome to our daily devotion. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend, and we'll be talking about that when we have Monday morning coffee in just a wee bit here. So today we want to continue on with the fruit of the Spirit, and we're still on love. And today we're going to talk about another hard one. So many of you made comments about the ones we did on Friday about them being kind of hard, practical applications, and it is. But today is another one. It's about a love that forgives. And we say, have you ever made a statement similar to this one? Okay, I will forgive you, but I will not forget. Okay, we are now engaged in one of the most exciting aspects of love, forgiveness. And this is truly a big part of love. To forgive or not to forgive, that is the question. But first, a true story to set the tone for this section of study. On a cold wintry evening, a man suffered a heart attack. After being admitted to the emergency room in the hospital, asked the nurse to call his daughter. He explained, "You see, I live alone and she's the only family that I have." The nurse went to phone the daughter. The daughter was quite upset and shouted over the phone, "You must not let him die. You see, Dad and I had a terrible argument almost a year ago, and I haven't seen him since. All these months I wanted to go to him and ask for forgiveness. The last thing I said to him was, 'I hate you.'" The daughter cried and then said, "I'm coming now. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The patient went into cardiac arrest and code blue was sounded. The nurse prayed, "Oh God, his daughter is coming. Don't let it end this way." But the efforts of the medical team to revive the patient was fruitless. The nurse observed one of the doctors talking to the daughter outside of the room. She could see the pathetic hurt on her face. The nurse took the daughter aside and said, "I'm so sorry." The daughter responded, "I never hated him, I loved him, and now I want to go see him." But the nurse thought, why put yourself through more pain? But she took her to the room where her father lay. The daughter went to the bed and buried her face in the sheets as she said goodbye to her deceased father. The nurse, as she tried not to look at this sad goodbye, noticed a scrap of paper on the bedside table. She picked it up and read, "My dearest Janie, I forgive you. I pray you will also forgive me. I know that you love me. I love you too, Daddy." Sorry. The hurts that have risen out of holding on to wrongs are incalculable. Bearing a grudge may be the heaviest of all burdens to carry which are known to mankind. So you have really been wronged and it hurts. And you may have made the choice to keep your hurt and create a plan of revenge. That kind of life action will only prolong and increase the pain. So how does a person deal with such things? Where do we go for the ultimate answers? Once more, back to the words of Jesus Christ. Let's look at Matthew 18:21 through 35. So Matthew 18:21 through 35 says, "Then Peter came to him and asked, 'Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times?' 'No, not 7 times,' Jesus replied, 'but 70 times 7. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven can be compared to a king who decided to bring his accounts up to date with servants who had borrowed money from him. In the process, one of his debtors was brought to him who owed him over millions of dollars. He couldn't pay, so his master ordered that he be sold along with his wife, his children, and everything he owned to pay the debt. But the man fell down before his master and begged him, 'Please be patient with me and I will pay it all.' Then his master was filled with pity for him and released him and forgave his debt. But when the man left the king, he went to a fellow servant who owed him a few $1,000s. He grabbed him by the throat and demanded instant payment. His fellow servant fell down before him and begged for a little more time. 'Be patient with me and I will pay you,' he pleaded. But his creditor wouldn't wait. He had the man arrested and put in prison until the debt could be paid in full. When some of the other servants saw this, they were very upset. They went to the king and told him everything that had happened. Then the king called in the man he had forgiven and said, "You evil servant, I forgave you tremendous debt because you pleaded with me. Shouldn't you have mercy on your fellow servant, just as I had mercy on you?" Then the angry king sent the man to prison to be tortured until he paid his entire debt. That's what my Heavenly Father will do to you if you refuse to forgive your brothers and sisters from your heart. That is some powerful words right there. And it is hard to forgive, I know. But have you ever been so deeply hurt and allowed unforgiveness to remain in your spirit? What happened to your inner person when that happened? In this parable, why do you think Peter was so concerned about how many times forgiveness was to be offered? And have a little insight on that question. The interchange which takes place is in verse 21 and 22, likely had reference to the Jewish law that taught if a man sins once, twice, or 3 times, they forgive him. If he sins a 4th time, they do not forgive him. Peter would have been raised with this concept as it was taught in the day, and Jesus would have also been aware of this part of the law. Therefore, with that background, you understand how amazing it was that Jesus gave this answer to Peter. But also, would you like to speculate as to what the reaction of Christ's listeners would be to such an edict, given what the Jewish law was? Do you think Christ really meant that we should offer forgiveness up to 490 times, or do you think he meant we aren't to offer forgiveness whenever forgiveness is needed? What relationship was Peter referring to when he asked about how many times to forgive? Take a look at verse 21. Let's take time out and do some simple mathematical equations in this parable. 10,000 talents equals how many dollars? The clue is a talent in weight was approximately 75 pounds. If these were gold talents, they were a 12 troy ounces to a pound. So we are dealing with about 9 million ounces of gold. Or take the time to figure out if they were silver talents. The debt is astronomical either way. One more mathematical equation. What is a denarius worth? The clue is that it was approximately a day's wages for common labor. In today's system of money, it would be worth about 9 cents. And how large was this man's debt? Why do you think it was so hard for the man who had been forgiven such a large debt to be forgiven to his fellow man? What are the principles of forgiveness in this parable? And how costly is it to be unforgiven? Well, you know, Jesus says, unless you forgive, I will not forgive you. That's a pretty high cost to me. Why were those other servants so greatly distressed by the actions taken? Jesus began this parable by saying, therefore the kingdom of heaven is like. Make the contrast between the principles of the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of this world, as pictured here. And the little assignment says today, think, is there a relationship you might be involved with presently or out of the past that needs forgiveness so healing can take place? And write out the steps that you'll be taking to offer forgiveness. The third thing, just do it. Discipline yourself to put your forgiveness into life action. Do it before you lose your resolve. Do it before it's too late. Because, my friends, there come a day when you need to forgive somebody and they're not going to be here to forgive. We have to remember Jesus' words and forgive. Tomorrow we'll look at the life application of this lesson. So thank you so much for joining in our daily devotion. I will see you all later this morning for Monday Morning Coffee. And God bless and have a beautiful week.